Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. So I decided to do a few more of my favorite things. Now, I did the first a few of my favorite things video a few months ago, and it went over rather well. And there are many more favorite things, so I thought I'd do part two. Now, these are not my best guns, my coolest guns, my most expensive guns. They're favorite guns. And that means some of them are a little stupid. So there was some debate over whether or not this should be a stupid guns I adore video, or what it is, a few more of my favorite things, and that won out in the end. So, shout out to my Patreons. Pretty much everything I do costs money, just like pretty much everything everyone does. And your contributions help more than you know. I'd also like to help channel benefactors like Rain City Shooting Center, Pentos Guns, my friend Leah, and several others who are mostly listed in the card at the end. Contributions of ammo, donations of guns, allowing me to shoot and show you their guns. Invaluable to this channel because I'd have run out of guns pretty quickly. Now I am limiting this to handguns because that's easier with the format. And I do apologize for the fan noise in the background, but it's over 90 degrees in here, and if I couldn't have that fan, I wouldn't do this at all. Sorry. So let's go to the tabletop for the first gun on the list. The first up is the Duo made by F. Dusek prior to World War II. It's first on this video because this is the gun in the first video I ever did for this channel. And the F. Dusek Duo, after his factory got nationalized as part of CZ in 1948, became the CZ Duo and was made for many years. It's a simple straight blowback pistol with a 6-round magazine chambered in 25 ACP. Not a powerhouse. It has a manual safety. It is a single-action striker-fired pistol. And safety comes off rather easily. The sights are essentially non-existent. There's just a trough. And this was not really meant for engaging at any real distance. And I didn't do any shooting with it in the first video. So I decided to do a point and shoot at 3 yards. And I'm not well practiced with this gun. I've put maybe a whole box of ammo through it, including what I shot today, since I've owned it. But since most people who bought these guns would have fired very few rounds through them and then just dropped it in a pocket for carried it around for years, or a purse or whatever. So, you know, it seems fair that I am unpracticed with it. So let's have a look at how that went. Yeah, there were a couple flyers, but overall I think that went pretty well. And, you know, they grouped reasonably well. Certainly that would have discouraged most casual thieves in the pre-war era. The hilarious thing about these guns is that when the Nazis took over Czechoslovakia, they took over the factory because F. Dusek wanted nothing to do with them. And they produced these, continued to produce these guns. And and they sold them primarily to Nazi officers in a miniature flap holster with an extra magazine and a cleaning rod, so it mimicked a standard military flap holster. These are very well-made little pistols, and it bears a distinct relationship to the Colt vest pocket in that it's taken down by rotating the barrel. All this is very nicely knurled instead of having just grooves cut in it. And overall, the finishing, the machining, the fit and finish, everything is really good on these. And with good quality factory ammo, it is perfectly reliable. And as you saw in the video, probably not useless. I don't know of an awful lot of people who would take 4 to 6 hits center mass in a big hurry, who are going to not reevaluate their life choices. But it's a cool little gun, and it's really neat, and it's clever and small, and I really like it. So that's why this is one of my favorite things. The second one of my favorite things is another 25 auto, the Mauser, what we now call the model of 1910. Mauser called it the .635, or 6.35, excuse me, the European designation for 25 ACP. And it appeared in their catalog of 1910, so we call it the model of 1910. This is a later variation. It lacks the takedown lever here for removing the side plate. And they're rather unique in operation in that when you pull the slide back, it locks back, period. Whether you have a magazine in it, whether you don't, it locks back. This is not a mag release. All right, you have to drop the magazine to drop the slide. This is the safety. Push down the lever and it's on, but you can't push the lever back up. You have to press this button. And in 1910, they were still kind of sussing out how semi-automatic pistols ought to go together. So this one does have the heel magazine release and standard box magazine in the grip, which had become pretty much standard by that point. And it does have a slide and a barrel, and it takes down in a rather clever way, but I'm not going to do that because, frankly, I did it in the video about this pistol, and YouTube gets tetchy about that sort of thing. Now, this actually, as you can see, is much bigger than a typical 25 auto. It's closer in size probably to a PPK, but that makes it gives you a longer barrel, which gives you better ballistics. I believe it's 3.5 inches. Let's find out together. No, it's 3 inches, which is 50% longer than the average for a 25 auto. It actually has quite reasonable sights. And the trigger pull is, shouldn't dry fire it too much, but stupidly light. It is just super, super light. And the reset is quite long, but again, the trigger pull is stupidly light. And it's just a neat gun. It holds 9 rounds in the magazine, so you've got a very reasonable capacity, and it is dead easy to shoot nice tight rapid fire groups at 7 yards with this gun. So it was a more capable pistol than the caliber might suggest. And it's just got so many cool features, and it's so unusual looking, and it shoots so well. Is it really any wonder it's one of my favorite things? Because it certainly is. Next up is maybe the stupidest gun on the list. This is a Colt Fitz Special replica. Now, the original Fitz Special was done on a Series 1 Colt Police Positive Special, and they were done in .38 Smith & Wesson long, which I'm sure Colt, or Smith & Wesson Special, not Smith & Wesson long, which I'm sure Colt called something else because they don't like putting Smith & Wesson on their guns. And it's a very nicely made gun. I have, of course, completely refinished it, and it is unlike any other Fitz I'm aware of in that it's chambered for 32-20. Now, I had the gun, rather beat up old 32-20 Police Positive Special, and I had shortened it to a 2-inch barrel, and eventually I bobbed the hammer, and then I thought, well, I might as well just go the whole hog and fix it. And I tried to stay true to the original as possible, cutting underneath in the same way, removing the trigger guard to the same point, 40 line per inch checkering on the handle in a cross-hatched pattern. The sight does deviate, and the rear sight is, I cut in a step with some serrations to make it a little more obvious. So that's not really a Fitz thing, but other than that, it's a pretty good reproduction of a Fitz. Now, the Fitz Special was a very special purpose gun. It was designed to be carried in a specially lined pocket in Fitz's overcoat for Fitz to use, and he had very large fingers and had trouble getting into the trigger guard, so he, especially with winter gloves, so he cut away the front of the trigger guard, smoothed off the bottom of the frame, cut the barrel to 2 inches. He did put sights on them. His were stock Colt factory sights, front sights, and sometimes he removed this little knob at the end of the ejector rod, sometimes didn't. And you could order these from the Colt factory as a Fitz Special. And while they were really a special purpose gun made for a special person, for his particular use, because he was prominent in the gun community and well known to the gun press, there was a bit of a fad for them for a while. Numbers of how many were made were very uncertain, but by any standard, it wasn't very many. And he also made them on the Colt News Service, but I have not yet found a Colt News Service that I would sacrifice to the purpose. He did them in 45 long Colt and Colt News Service revolvers. And they're just a really cool piece of firearms history, and I always wanted one for absolutely no good reason. Just because it's a cool piece of history. And so, while I never intend to carry this, I did want to have one, just to have one as a conversation piece, and for having the experience of doing it, because I like to make my own fun. And of course, I made antler grips for it, because antler is cool. So, Fitz Special replica. Neat stuff. The next gun on the list is rather less esoteric and considerably less old than the first 3 guns, and that is my custom Smith & Wesson 642 5-shot J-frame 38 Special with an alloy frame. Now, this gun was carried by a good friend of mine for a number of years before he passed it into my keeping. And no, I didn't inherit it. He's still alive and well. And I found it to be a nice, good quality, useful revolver. A little long in the tooth, kind of beat up a little bit, but you know, nothing wrong with it. But I was not keen on the sights, and so I experimented with a couple different options. And I recently did a video about this gun before I refinished it, so you can find out more there. I used a large diameter, a 1/8 inch fiber optic pipe. I fabricated a front sight out of steel, and after determining that it was shooting low, I raised the point of impact with a trough rear sight. And so that gives you a very nice, very fast to acquire sight picture, which is the sort of thing you want on a concealed carry gun of this sort. And I relieved the trigger guard on the right so I can get at the trigger quicker and more easily from the safe position. And I did cut the dovetails by hand with a file, because that's how I roll. The grips are custom grips I made out of American Holly, and then I finished the gun in Magpul Stealth Gray, except for the stainless steel cylinder. And obviously the cylinder release, screws, other things. Come on, it's a contrast thing. And I really do like the gun. The trigger pull is about 8 pounds, and extremely smooth, because I worked on that a little bit. And while generally speaking, I do not much carry revolvers anymore, I will, as circumstances seem appropriate, have no hesitation to drop this one in my pocket for a quick outing of one sort or another. And it shoots great. It's very light. I mean, 15 ounces loaded. 5 shots of 38 Special. Adequate clearance for speed loaders. And it is just a very good utilitarian gun with really much improved sights. And it tickles me, because it is it's the most modern, old-fashioned gun I have, and it's just great. I really enjoy it. So next up is the Dark Horse, a surprise contender, by Taurus G2s, which I bought for the $200 challenge video. Out of the new inbox defensive pistol, or $200 or less, and this was pretty much dead on $200. It was a few cents less. And I discovered to my surprise that not only is it exceptionally reliable, it's quite accurate, and really I find it quite pleasant to shoot. So when a friend of mine gave me a surplus to need O-light, I stuck that on it. It's far too bright. And when another friend, Leah, gave me a wood burner that was also surplus to need, I used one of its tips, a sort of 5mm Maltese cross, to enhance the really decent factory texturing, but I wanted better, and I textured the foot on the magazines, the base plate, and I can just get a full grip on this gun. And I was really surprised. It almost hung up at 700 rounds, and I realized I had never cleaned or lubricated the gun. So I did that, and it's got to be closing in on 2,000 rounds through it now, with nary an issue, except a couple that were super obviously ammo related. It's an interesting gun because it looks like your standard striker fired pistol of its type, you know, Glock-ish. And it is, in a sense, in that it is striker fired, but it's actually a single action auto. So the safety actually makes sense, which I didn't realize at first. And the trigger pull, while it has a hell of a lot of take-up, after wearing in, breaks at 3 pounds. And the reset is pretty short. So it's really quite good, quite a nice shooter. And the light makes it, I mean, if I drop it in a pants pocket, it's going to print, but it doesn't look like a gun because of the light, which is very handy. It's very, very flat. It's very reliable, and with the texture and the nicely worn in trigger and the sights properly adjusted, it is just a great gun to shoot, and I could not see any reason not to carry it. And so sometimes I do, just because it's just so convenient, and I trust it because it's never let me down. So the last gun on the list. On the first A Few of My Favorite Things video, the last gun on the list was my Detonics Mark I Combat Master 45. So it seems fitting that the last gun on this list, my second favorite things list, would be my updated take on the Detonics Mark I, which I refer to as the latter-day Detonics, or LDD-1, which is the same size as the original Detonics. I even managed eventually to cut the frame down properly, and it has a few, shall we say, tweaks over the original, like this cutaway slide with the ported barrel, this cut matching the cut, this cut in the frame matching the cut in the slide. It has an alloy frame from Hellfire Armory. It does have a bit of a beaver tail, just a hair, which the original did not, and an ambidextrous safety and other more modern features, and it's in 9mm rather than 45 ACP. The trigger pull is quite nice. It's not terribly special. It's about 3 pounds. And the reset is standard 1911 short, which is pretty good. Now, I did make an aluminum base pad for the magazine and checkered the front of it because that extension is just enough to give me a firm full finger grip on the gun without really compromising concealability. And it is finished in satin light gray gun coat. Looks a little different on the steel slide than it does on the aluminum frame, but that's okay with me. And it has a lot of features that I included that are not original, like the long trigger, the aluminum mainspring housing, which in proper Detonics fashion is flat. I did have to do a custom grip safety, which is no longer a grip safety. It does not function just like on the original. And the rear sight is fashioned out of aircraft aluminum, and it is serrated on the front so that it can be used in an emergency against a table edge, clothing, etc., as a charging handle. And the various bits in black for accent. And I think it's a very interesting, very handsome gun. Importantly, it is a very, very reliable gun. My first criteria for a carry gun, it has to work. And this one works very well indeed. And between the lightweight slide, the porting, and the heavy recoil spring and short stroke of the recoil system, it is very, very soft shooting for a gun its size and gets back on target basically instantly. And so this is my carry gun of choice because it is so capable, and I can do very, very good work with it. So that's it. A few more of my favorite things. So that's pretty much it for this time. Let me know in the comments what a few of your favorite things are. Maybe if you particularly like some of my favorite things, you could mention that too. If you like the video, please click like. It really helps the channel. And if you want to see more content, generally like this, hit the subscribe button. So, I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you again real soon. I'm going to get out of this heat, get into some nice air conditioning, and have a cool drink. I hope you have a good evening, or good day, or good God, I'm an idiot.